Hello everybody, look what we got here. We got ourselves a little Sister of Battle thing going on. Yep, we just picked this up today. Actually, we got a couple of them. Kathy's going to be painting one on her stream. What I'm trying to do is get that chat thing working here. So let's see if we can do that. Now, I'm going to shove this over here onto the side. Now, I'm going to get this up here a little bit. So just bear with me here while I get this working. So yeah, I gotta get in here. I gotta type in some passwords and stuff. And I'm gonna use the contrast paints just like I have been, for the last couple of weeks, right? Except we're gonna do a little twist. This is where we're mixing them with the regular paints. And I'll show you some of the stuff, if you remember, from a few weeks ago. It was last week I did the Lannister crossbowman. Yeah, and that was with the Sky Earth non-metallic metal. So we're gonna give that a shot here. 1 second. Alright, so I just gotta approve this here, and let's see if it actually finally works. So we're gonna make that see-through. Oh, well, okay, it did that. Here we'll go red, then we're gonna go bright green, and alright, well, I hope this works. But anyways, yes, Sister of Battle here. I'm gonna put my keyboard away. Now, if you're wondering what she was primed with, the usual Badger Steinerez right here. And just to make sure that I can actually see, say, hey, Bethany, so, okay, we actually have some words on the screen. And you notice I did actually go over it again to get a little bit of white in some places. So here we're gonna go over here to my controls and get her zoomed in a little bit here. Then we're also going to, I got the brightness turned down, that's good. So not real super complicated, just a couple of these guys right here. Let's get rid of this. Yeah, didn't kill the didn't kill my chat this time. So Wildwood, Fire Slayer, Flesh, and I will still call it stylish purple. That's what I'm going to say. We're also going to mix in some colors like this. These are just regular old colors here. And let me show you. Now you see those references there in the corners? That is right here. So we're going to go with this gold and green. This is my Sisters of the Raven. It was an army that I did back in 2014 for my Adepticon tournament army. So that's what we're looking for. You can see we've got plenty of greens in that gold. We got some purples there. So we're going to try and do that with our contrast paints. Now, to get a broader sense of the army, you can see there's a vehicle that I converted into an Exorcist right there. So yeah, the Sisters of Battle, I've painted plenty of metal Sisters of Battle, believe me. Painted more than my share of those. So it should be interesting to see what the plastic ones are like. This one, yeah, it's different. I mean, obviously there's things that it has, and I'm sure the Retributors or whatever, those are going to be probably much easier to deal with instead of these big old metal things right here. So I'll be curious to see what happens. But see how you got the red hair there on that and the gold armor? That's what we're looking for. Since the backpacks are essentially exactly the same, the weapons are the same, the faces are basically the same. See that again, the gold armor right there on the leg. The one carrying the heavy bolter. See on the backpack, see how that's reflecting a little bit of the green onto the gold? Yeah, see here's another view. See it on the backpack there, on that curved surface there? You've got the green reflected there in the gold. So that's the objective here on this one. Because we got the same sleeve action, a lot of the same things going on. Now this is a little different twist here. We got these candles, so that's obviously going to be a little bit of sky earth right there. So let's get some of this stuff out of the way. And let's just get in here with some of the contrast stuff. Now this is the Iandan, mixing that in with a little bit of the Fire Slayer, right? And I'm just gonna, right here, try and get the focus going a little bit better for you. once there's some actual paint on this thing, it's really going to make a big difference. So we'll just go with shoulder pads for right now. Hey Justin, how's it going? Now this should be fun. I tried to prep it as soon as I could. So see, we got a couple of different colors going on in there. We might even have a little bit of wildwood come in here. Actually, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my lights here a little bit so that it's not quite so there. It's not quite so blinding for you. But what I am going to do is let these mix together a little bit. So we're just going to carry this right down here. We're using gravity. Now back here, there's just kind of no better way to do it except get in here and use that big old craft brush and just shove that sucker right down in there and just start getting some paint into there. Might as well just do it. Now I'm going to go back into here and I've got 3 other colors now mixed in. It's not just the Iandin, it's a combination of a few other things. And I'm even, here's a little bit of the purple. Gonna let some of that work its way in there. I wish they would show more of this kind of stuff with it, where you're basically sort of almost making like a little bit of a watercolor transition here. So I'm gonna take some of that same purple, gonna throw it over here, like so. Because at this point, we're just looking to establish some real quick darks here. And here's the other thing. So just paper towel here. So we get the brush basically into kind of a dry filbert like this. So I can go in here and actually then, so I can start to push the paint around, move it around, take some of that away. If I feel like it's going to pool too much or make things too dark, I wish they would show a little more of that. Alright, so let's get ourselves, I'm just going to get my light a little bit, there we go, one step brighter. So again, looking for some golds here. Okay, I threw down the Iandin. Now I just went for touch of that Fire Slayer. Could have been Snakebite Leather, but I was looking to get a little bit more of a reddish tint to it this early on. And what do we got here? We got another part of the gauntlet there. We'll carry this down, work our way down here. I'm just going to let it hit the purity seal. What the heck? No big deal. There's a touch of that purple again. And like I said, don't be shy about letting things get just a little bit darker here, because the whole idea is we're going to go back in. I'm going to go right back in here and work in some middle tones by mixing. What was that? The flash gets yellow. I've got a little, I think it's Xandri dust, right? Something along those lines. All we're doing here, just setting the stage. We can do 2-3 glazes here if we want. So here's some of that purple again. Now there's going to be some green in the marble here, so that's another reason why I want this to start to tint a little bit green. You can maybe even see that in some of the references there. Yeah, let's just work our way down. See, I'm just going to pull some of this. See, it's pooled in there. I was counting on that as a little bit of a reservoir. And I'm now just going to pull down like so. And this is just like the initial glazes that you've seen me do. Here, so something along the lines of like this. This is all we're trying to do, is get to this stage. Because if you remember last week's demo, you see we started off here, then we started to work our way up a little bit to this, and then to this, and then finally to this. And we're going to do a similar thing here with this Sister of Battle. At least that is the plan. Get those guys off to the side. Let's let this go. Right. Actually, you know what? I actually am going to get right in here with some green. And I also wish they'd show people mixing stuff. So this is the Wildwood and the Warp Lightning Green together. I'm just going to go right into here. Let that be darker. And I'm going to let that mix in with my golds, because as you can see by the reference picture, I want some of that to get into the gold. That's sort of the plan. Because when you look at those armor references, and I talk about it all the time, when the armor is shiny, it's reflecting everything, including their clothes. And I think this should show you what I mean. See how that's reflecting the red here on his... See how that's reflecting the plume right there? This is reflecting the red here on his tunic. So you have to think you are not just reflecting the distant skyline or the distant horizon line or trees. You have to kind of reflect everything. Which is why I don't mind if some of this green gets in other places. All we're trying to do here is just get rid of that white primer as soon as possible. So basically that sandy colored primer, see how I let some of the green hit that? That's something that I actually want to see happen. I'm even going to do that on purpose over here, just to let those mix together. Now I'm going to go with more Wildwood here. Touch of green in some places. And what I'm going to do is afterwards go back in there, pull out lighter colors if I feel I need to. But if I want to have some glowing stuff, well, I need to have something darker. You can't have light unless you have some dark, and vice versa. So I'm going to make sure here that the chat's still actually working, because sometimes it has a tendency not to. Here, let's see where I'm at here. Okay, looks like it's still going. Because the last time I got it going, everything was great and people were asking questions, and then like nothing was happening. I said, what the heck is going on here? And sure enough, the chat was still going, but on my screen, it had died. So again, I'm just making this darker here. This is Wildwood, Nyandan, or Leviathan Blue, sorry. All I want to do is just make that darker. It's all about establishing context as soon as possible. Now, the bolter. Just going to get in right in there straight away. Just get that covered. And I can do the same trick if I want to. Now you can let that sit there, or again, I'm going to take some of the paint away here. So see, we're just removing some of the excess. It's creating a little more of a dark to light transition there that otherwise might not be there. But in any case, not a big deal, because the whole idea is to go right back over it again. Alright, we've got another one of the grenades over here. We'll just hit that. And with the last of that, and hit that. Just gonna whack these candles here real quick. And for our candle flames, we've got, here it is. We're going to use some of the Vallejo fluorescent paint. Now I'm going to actually grab here some of the Blood Angels red, so that I can mix some of that in. Mix that together with some of the Wildwood here. Like you do. Because remember, I wanted to have blue woad on the face. I wanted to have that red hair. No better way to get that established quickly. And now I'll get a little bit of this watered down, and we'll just use that as a de facto flesh wash. So surface covered, and you say, oh my gosh, it's a huge mess. Well, it's any different than this, which eventually becomes this. This is the sort of the lattice work that you're going to set up everything else on top of. That's all we're doing right here. We're just creating a little bit of a source here, generating our, so we can go back in with stuff like our non-metallic metal, the object source lighting. Because without that initial framework, let's say you paint nothing but the face, and you paint nothing else, and all the primer is white, then you start painting other stuff, and you realize, well, gee, that face is, that color looks weird now that we've painted all the armor around it. See, I'm already starting to do secondary glazes in here. I could sit here and let this dry. Alright, so now I'm going to crank up my brightness a bit. There we go. And even at this early stage, well, a few seconds, we've established pretty well where we want lights and darks to go. We've gotten rid of all the white. We've gotten rid of that blank canvas syndrome. And then what we can start to do is mix regular paints. And by that, I'm just going to start off easy here with the Screaming Skull. Like so. Get this out on the palette. This is my own little homemade wet palette, by the way. It's just a Chinese food container. Piece of, here we go, just a piece of parchment paper here. It's kind of a higher grade parchment paper. And then a chamois like that. It's not a nice texture to it. It's a nice gray, so it doesn't kind of bounce on the palette. And I'm going to show you the brushes too. So this is what I'm using right here from Hobby Lobby. There's 12 of them in there. $4.99. But what's nice is they hold a lot of liquid. So see, what we can do is we can start to now mix our contrast paints in with regular paints and get sort of a semi-translucent look to things. And as stuff starts to dry, we can do that much more with it. So I just mix that with some of the blue there. And let's see what we can do on our bolter. So see what that's starting to do? We got a little bit of a bluish gray there now. And where there might have been some kind of irregularity, where the wash might have done something crazy, that starts to go away. And we can even most likely, see, we can go right in here. But we let the contrast paint sort of do the dirty work for us. For those of you familiar with my normal painting stuff, that would have been probably blue and gray liner, and that's the Reaper paints. And the whole idea of me using the contrast paints was just to try and again find some substitutes for folks who could not get the Reaper paints overseas. So I can go back in here again to start maybe lightening up some parts of these purity seals already, because I knew I could go back in and do that. That's why I was not heartbroken or anything like that at the start. I can even start to go in here, start to manage some of the skin tones. Now the contrast paints, they can take a little while to dry. So as those are drying, I'm going to actually put out some of this fluorescent orange while I'm thinking about it here. Alright. Just going to start getting that in on my candles here real quick. And I was just doing one of my Patreon army painting series just yesterday, and I compared the fluorescent orange to whatever the brightest, I think it was not wild red or red, it was this one here. Compared to this Troll Slayer orange, the Troll Slayer orange looked brown by comparison. And every time I go to mess around with that fluorescent paint, I keep thinking that somebody else must have a paint that's at least as bright as that. And every time I'm proven wrong. There is just nothing like the fluorescent orange. Well, and they have fluorescent green, fluorescent magenta. Alright, so I'm just marking a few places where I think the orange would be. I'm just going to kill some of the pooling that happened down here. Again, just by drying out the brush and wiping it away. So I'll see your pooling there kind of goes away a little bit. Now normally like here, okay, this I'd probably be doing something say with brown liner paint, but what I've got to work with here is wildwood, so I'm just trying to work with what I've got. The other thing is you have to be a little bit patient with when you're doing the non-metallic stuff, because you have to establish, you really got to establish where you want your reflections to be, what's going to be light, what's going to be dark. Like here, I can go and now do yet another glaze over that hosing and tubing. Starts to set that down a little bit. The hair, I can do another glaze in here too. One more. Now there's not a whole bunch of texture sculpted into the hair. I have to say that it's more of a hair helmet. So I'm going to have to paint in any sort of individual strands. Let's get some separation here. And what you'll notice as this moves along, you'll see a more and more darkest output, and then we go back in, and that's where we start to add in our lights. So let's see if we don't have just a regular old green here somewhere. Let's mix whatever this is. That is moot green. We'll mix that in with our contrast paints too. See what happens. I don't have any other GW greens. I kind of have a bluish green. Maybe use that. But we'll mix that in with the warp stone here and touch of the blue there. And now all of a sudden that robe starts to take on a little different color. Or clothes, whatever you want to call them. Again, trying to get a little bit of reflection there. We're just letting those contrast paints mix in. See how that starts to solidify that? So here we have all kinds of wacky pooling and stuff going on. Now we have this little semi-translucent glaze that goes over the top, gets rid of some of that. I'm already starting to think about my green reflections over here. Remember, we wanted green reflections over here. We'll do that. I'm even going to sneak a little bit of green into here just as a reminder. Let's see, where else do we have to put some of this stuff? I also have to start thinking of some linear middle tones and other stuff here on the armor. So like that. And with the gold, it has to have more than just yellows in it. You have to have some greens, you gotta have purples. Geez, you almost have to have, for lack of a better term, some blues. It sounds really nuts, but believe it or not, you look at this stuff here, that yes, there's some blue for the sky earth type stuff going on, but there's plenty of browns in there. There's even a little bit of purples. Now, some of these things here, like the wings here, okay, I'm gonna go in with some of this lighter with the screaming skull, but I'm also then gonna go back with some darker glazes. You have to sometimes work back and forth a little bit. Can't just be all dark to light, or even the other way around. You actually get way better results when you allow yourself to work both ways. And I think just in a few minutes, you start to see already things are starting to develop a little bit. And we let the contrast stuff kind of start the ball rolling, I guess. This is actually how I used to paint years ago. I would use the secret weapon washes, the GW washes, glazes, whatever they called those back in the day. Use those too, and I'd mix regular paint in there with it, and I would be willing to just sort of work back and forth, working back and forth. And then here I'm just starting to collect a few. I don't want to say highlights yet, but I just want to get some definition on some things. So I'm going to go back to that. Where's my... I might have to put some fresh Leviathan blue out there. But you see how the contrast paint, it kind of gives you a little bit of irregular... You just get splotchiness. Well, you take the splotchiness away by mixing in the regular paint. Now this is where I start to get a little bit of gray in my golds, because you want some really warm colors, but you also want some cooler colors. So here is where we start to establish a little more of the linear stuff going on. So I'm just going to double check. See it right there. Let that go the entire distance down all the way to the knee there. Gonna try and reflect a little bit of the ground there. And I guess I try to encourage people to just be willing to be patient with things, because they want it to look like something immediately. Well, that's not quite how life works. Sometimes good things come when you just be patient and wait for them. And speaking of waiting for it, say we're actually putting some of that gray. Say, wait, that's supposed to be gold. But if we want to reflect some of what's going on in our base here, well, that's going to be definitely a little more along the lines of gray. I can see even here as I move along. See how there's a nice little variety of greens and browns in there. That's something that I can work from that. There we go. Just go over the top of that with some of that same grayish color there. And as the original contrast layers kind of dry out, then we can do a little bit more. But right now this is all just, I kind of refer to it as shaded base coat, because it really is just sort of a base coat, at least to me. So I can go back in here with some subsequent glaze. Let's get a little more of the Fire Slayer flash in there. Now, touch of that wildwood. We can start to maybe even think about a horizon line, but you want to get some variation in there. We don't want it to be this. That's what I used to do with horizon lines. I used to let it be this solid mass. So see, there's interruptions in there. Now I'm going to go back over this insignia right here, in a few places. Just gonna let some dark settle down in here. If you want to have light, like I said, you gotta get some decent darks in there. And that's all we're trying to do at this stage right here. Just have to be willing to kind of wait through those early moments when you don't see a whole lot. And it can be frustrating for people. Hey, Justin. This is giving me... Oh yeah, here's some. The pouches. Gotta hit these. Gotta remember those. And as I just said, by almost being a little bit random with where these additional glazes go, it sort of tells me, okay, man, you should probably put some lights over here. Maybe this is where your horizon line should be. See, we actually have to reflect the armor onto this surface here. Whatever's here has to be reflected there too. And like I said, it can be tough when you are just not used to this whatsoever. Alright, while we let the rest of that dry, let's see what we can do on our base here. Let's see if we can't get some lighter tones in this. Hopefully you can see that. Trying to give it a little bit of a marble effect by not making that all just white. And I'm going to go back in here with some of my green again. It's essentially just you're sort of pre-shading things. And by allowing that little bit of randomness, you'd be amazed at sometimes how much more natural your colors can be. Because when we used to do things before we started to do that kind of a technique or whatever, things looked shaded. I mean, the shading was nice, but it just didn't have that little extra touch of realism to it. Hey, Gary, how's it going? Yeah, I figured I'm going to be, well, I'm in the middle of doing the army painting series with the contrast paint, so I thought, okay, well, while I'm in the middle of doing that, I just got this thing, why not try and screw around with this? Because we did the Lannister stuff the exact same way we're working with this. So I thought, let's give it a try. Okay, once again, going after some of that horizon line there. And just little by little, things are now going to start to, even this early, now you're going to start to see some things happen. Now, one thing I don't have in any GW form whatsoever is just a straight up white, so I will have to break out just a Reaper pure white. I mean, like I said, that's all it is just a pure white, so there's nothing dramatically different or anything like that. Here, let's get this edge too. And I'm just going to take the Screaming Skull, mix that in. That's that Blood Angels red. Take a touch of that yellow there. Let's see if we can't get a little bit of lighter colors here in our skin tone. Got plenty of dark in there. We actually want to get that a little bit lighter. And green-wise, I would be using clear green, the Reaper clear green right now, if I had it to use, but I don't. I'm just trying to use GW stuff here. But you see with each kind of layer with my green there, it gets that much more intense, that much brighter. And we'll just go start to make the beads more of a green. You can see that everything starts to get a little more of that brighter green with each layer of the opaque paint. Alright, what I'm going to do is I'm going to see if I can't turn on my other light here when I'm used to working with and turn that one off. Now I can see things. Alright. Now I know where I need to get a little more of my green there. Again, we're going to reflect some here. Definitely can see a bunch more. I'm going to just mix some green with my purple to get a darker green down in here. That's better. Not quite sure what that cylinder is, but I'm just going to make it darker. It was a little bit too bright. I'm going to take some of the wildwood here and reinforce the whole corset thing just to make that a little bit darker. This is the other advantage of just kind of working the whole surface at once. If you want to make a change somewhere, you don't have an hour and something invested in painting just one little area. That's more like it. Okay. Now I'm going to, like I said, I can always throw additional glazes over things. I can see that I still need to get some more darks a little bit further back here, so let's try and do that. Like so. Some shadows for the eyes here. And I don't know, I mean, obviously I can use just the red of the, oh gosh, usually I think it's the, what's the blood letters red. Yeah, that one works pretty well. So I'm just going in with some of that purple now to get some more intense darks. I'm going to mix the purple. I love to mix purple with something like a snakebite leather or whatever to make a nice, interesting, warm brown. Alright. I just have to also figure out what the heck is what here. What's a strap? Because I know the old metal ones, but I don't know this new plastic one whatsoever. And obviously I didn't have hours and hours and hours to study it in advance. As I basically just got home and immediately started to prep this thing. Now, again, purple with the green. I'm going to mix that in with that Fire Slayer. And you can see I can start to do some of these little additional glazes here. To darken things down when necessary and then go back in. Pick up some lights. Here I just need me some darks down in there. And that's what I'm just going to do, is let that be dark down in there. That was mixing the Shyless Purple and the, oh god, the Wildwood, that's it. It's going to take me a while to get a handle on the names. That's for sure. every so often going back to that original Iandin wash there. So I'm going to get, here we go. Here's some of my white. Again, it's just straight up white. I mean, at a certain point, white is white. Doesn't matter who makes it. Mix it with a little bit of the Screaming Skull. And I'm going to get into here. Start to bring out a little more of my base. Again, it's just while I'm waiting for some things to dry elsewhere. Just going to let that other stuff settle into some of the crevices. I can come back in later. And you notice this is not a complete, not doing that all the way around. I'm just focusing here and then letting that go into just a little bit of shadow there. And even the same thing here, because I don't want this to be too bright because, well, she should be casting a shadow onto this base. And we wanted this to be green, so here's some of our green mix, and we're going to go right down in here. And we'll do that. I'm even going to take some of that darker green and start to get some darks into her tunic there, even reflect some of that here. So that the Shyless purple and that warp lightning green, that's kind of a nice combo there. Go back to my dark green, and still waiting for some parts of this to dry. So we'll just work on a part that we know we want to work on anyways here. So your fleur-de-lis, those are going to start to show up more. Because I think there's going to be plenty of tutorials on how to do this black like the original picture that you see all the time. And I wanted my Sisters of Battle to have a little bit different look to them. So, and I loved the whole gold, and I thought, well, yeah, that green and gold, that should be a nice little combination there. I also have to think, well, how much of the candlelight do I want to reflect down onto the marble surface and onto her and everything else? So I got to think of that. And if the marble surface is a little bit darker, then it's a little easier to reflect some of those colors. Get some of that glow in there. And you know, at this point, I just have kind of continued making some darker and darker and darker glazes. So then I can go back in with my lights again. So I will just grab a little touch of that. Yeah, Flesh Tears Red. This is the contrast stuff, just for some of the purity seals. Just for me to mark them and realize where the heck they are. You know, you got your roses over here. Thought the red would also be a nice little contrast to the green. Where's there some of our purity seals here? Yeah. Here. I think there's a couple of more. One over here. I tended to go with more of a cooler reddish color on my purity seals. Because usually, because I was doing my demon hunters and such, so I had plenty of warm reds. Alright, now let's get out some of the Flash Gets yellow. I'm just going to stick some of that out here. You can see there's even some contrast paint in there. And now we're going to start to bring out, okay, the fingers and the glove here, those got a little bit wiped out. We need to get a little oomph here. And some surfaces of the backpack. We also have to get a little oomph in our candle glow here, because we got, that's not bright enough. That's just a straight up fluorescent paint, so we're starting to brighten that up a little bit, but I just had to wait for it to dry before I could do this. And then I have to start to think, okay, where is that going to maybe reflect on the armor there? Maybe about here. Not a bunch. It's not like they're giant torches. They're just candles. So right here, we want some of that. Hey, Eric, how's it going? Well, it's one of those things where you practice. Obviously, practice is a key thing. But always, I don't know, kind of letting yourself sometimes be tossed out of your comfort zone once in a while. That can do that can do wonders for you. Let's get a little more. Start to get some of that white in there. Start to think about some horizon lines here. Here, let's see if we can't get some right on the top of this ridge line. Now we gotta we've kind of let these shoulder pads sit for a while. We wanted those to dry a bit. And if I remember right, with my own sisters, I always tended to do some almost light purple glazes on the wings of the inquisitorial symbol there. So we'll probably revisit that. Oh, what the heck. I'm going to do it now. I got some purple there. And that's just thinning it with water. It seems like once you've got actual paint there, when you're trying to do the whole original concept of the contrast paints, whatever, that's you can't really do that so much because it does alter it. But when all you're doing is just do a little glaze, seems to work out okay. And now here, when I start to go back in, is it a flash gets yellow, I think? Yeah, that's what it was. And I'm hoping this is on camera for you. And this is now where I start to pick up some more definition on some surfaces here. And as always, anything that gets too bright, I can just knock it down, knock it back down again with a quick little glaze. And as usual on the bodices, you've got those little studs on there. It is kind of freaky because somehow I was thinking these would be dramatically different, but it is awful darn similar. I must have painted at least 30 of the original Metal Sisters, if not more. So I got pretty darn familiar with those. There. And if you're wondering about techniques like this, the non-metallic thing, I've got a bunch of other live sessions like this that you can check out. There's going to be a couple other live sessions. Just link to this at the end. You can check out that Army Painter pledge level, because I've done at least 2 whole units now, and by units I mean like 13 figures, all in sky, earth, non-metallic metal. So it is possible. You can do it. Just takes a little bit of thought, a little bit of planning. A little bit of thought. And sometimes there's that, I just darken an area down so that later on I can come back in and add in some lights or some more intense colors or some more subdued colors. So now, and I can play off of this real easy because and in the beginning there we cranked in some of those lighter colors and we just let it be. We let it be messy early on. I know that that's difficult for people. Could be sometimes it's the toughest thing for them to wrap their minds around, that idea that stuff is just looking borderline out of control, or if not looking completely out of control. So now we can start to, that's just taking that contrast sludge that's kind of sitting out there and mixing some lighter colors in with it, and we're making a skin tone basically. I'm gonna get my white back out here again. Just want to start to mark where I might want the eyes to be here. They're pretty far back, and obviously you got the hair. Got that hair in the way there a little bit. Speaking of the hair, we're going to try and see if we can't paint in some lines on this and actually create a little bit of a hairline. So see, by mixing in the contrast paint with the regular paint, it gets to be a little bit translucent. So it sort of covers, but not completely, and that's a good thing, because it means the stuff that's underneath is going to show through, and that's what we want. There's a little more of the flash gets yellow. The more of that I add, it doesn't just get lighter, it also gets a little more opaque. And then it starts to cover a little bit more, and you can see we're starting to pull out some individual hairs now. But I may even... Okay, what is this? This is Wild Rider Red. I'm going to pull this out for some of the lighter colors in the hair even, to make sure it stays with that kind of reddish feel here. There we go, because I didn't want it to get too yellow, because then it's just going to start to blend in with the golds. There we go, that's a little different. It was more about the tinting rather than how light or dark it was. If I was to kill all the saturation on this, it would basically, you wouldn't even know the difference. But it's moving a little bit off of the yellow and more towards the red. And again, all of these places here where it looks like there's strands of hair on the original sculpt, it pretty much is nothing more than just a helmet. There's really not a lot of texture there. Alright, a little more of the... So I don't want to go too far with the hair, just far enough. Try and work on all the different areas as equally as possible. Not let one get too far out ahead of the other. It can be tempting, that's for sure. Sometimes, though, that extra little highlight just kind of beckons to you, and you have to resist the siren song of that extra little highlight into place. Now, I'm going to get back in here. I'm going to have to probably get some of the flash gets yellow back out there. Let's see how much. Okay, there's a little bit of the armor plate there, a little bit here. Now, sometimes I think here I actually made that a little bit on the greenish side so that the fleur-de-lis showed up a little bit more. I can always make that change if I want to. Now I've got to get something down here, but it's going to have to be a touch towards the green. So see, I just took a little bit of this green here, let that mix in. I needed to get some light on the underside of this. Andre, those brushes that you saw me use, those are from Hobby Lobby. Now, I just get mine off their website. Now, if you're in Europe or something like that, there's other, just look for basically synthetic watercolor brushes, because what they have is that resilient tip. Because those tips, I mean, when I get super glue on them when I'm basing, I shove them into rubbing alcohol, I clean them, and then I'm painting with them. And by painting, I mean stuff like freehand. I've done that. It drives people crazy when they see me doing that. So now this is, I'm going to look up that lighter green, see what it was. It was moot green, and that is mixed with my warp lightning. Because now I'm starting to think about, okay, I'm going to lighten up some of my green here. Hey, Uncle Scoop. I am so glad that this chat's actually working. It does make life a little bit easier to see things. Alright, so again, going to start to try and get some of the greenish color in here. So I'm trying to reflect the green over here, the green over here. Oh, where else do we need some over here too? On the underside of the arm here. And if I don't quite pick up, if you're asking a question or something like that, and I'm just kind of distracted doing this, I'll try and get to you as soon as I can. Now I may even try to fool around with a bit of freehand in some areas too. So right here. So I'm going to add this lighter green here. I'm also going to try and reflect some of that here on that armor. Doing the same thing right there. Now on the feet, we got to do the same kind of thing, except I'm going to really tone that down. So I've got some green right here on the marble base, so that means I've got to somehow get that. And this is, again, using the contrast paint. See how that's semi-translucent? But see how that just tinted that towards the green? We're going to do the same thing everywhere else where the feet are right next to the green on the base. And like those Lannisters that I showed you earlier, I'm going to bring them back out again. And the idea is, so see right here on this foot there, you can see the base is impacting. See how there's even a little red reflected on his foot there? Like we're reflecting as much of the base as we could. And see how these linear things happening right here? That's the sort of stuff that we're trying to put on the gauntlets and everything else. But again, it takes a little time to build that. It just doesn't happen straight away. You have to let that initial shaded base coat, you have to be willing to let that be messy and do its work so that you can build all the fun, nice, shiny stuff on top of it. So let's just, I'm going to use that green here on some of the, on the beads here. Oh boy, it's been a long time. I forget what that's. I know what not a Rosarius. Maybe it was a Rosarius. It's been a long time. It's been a very long time. What, 2014? Holy smokes. That's a lot of moons ago. The last time I was messing around with a Sister of Battle army. Again, now, that's the Shyish Purple, the Wildwood. Once again, thinking horizon line in some places. Gotta think darks over here. Let's see, I'm gonna do something like this here. Thinking some shadow there. And just, we build this up slowly. But then also figured, hey, you know what? I can go back into this, tone this down. I say I got some more Rosarius work to do over here too. I actually thought that was more of a power coupling there, and I keep forgetting, no, that's a Rosarius. That's what happens when you paint the same 3 metal poses about 7 times each. I don't know, maybe there was 4. Other folks that maybe remember have better recall than me know how many more poses or whatever. I swear there must have been just 3 different poses. Obviously not counting something like your sergeant, or, oh gosh, well, Mother Superior, that was in a separate box. I don't think the Mother Superior was in a, well, maybe she was with the Sister Repentia. Wow, Plastic Repentia. That could be interesting. Wow. That the recall was starting to come in fast and furious. Alright, so here again, another, trying to get some green reflection here, but now a little bit on the lighter side. Same thing down here. And yeah, that just, it starts to bring in a little more than just gold. And we've got a long way to go. You think you've got the lightest color, but because we haven't gone too crazy with the highlights, it leaves us with more leeway here. Here, I'm going to get some green over here. Might even get a touch of that on the bolter here. Now I'm going to get out some fresh Leviathan blue. I don't know why I keep wanting to call it Leviathan blue, but it's Leviathan blue. I think, let's see, what do I have? Well, somebody, when they loaned us Wildwood, that brought our grand total of different contrast paints up to 12. So Uncle Scoop. No, thanks. What is that? Barely controlled chaos, right? That's the key. Yeah, and I talk about this all the time. I was a watercolorist, pastel painter, oil painter by training, and you worked all around the entire surface of the painting. Actually, you can see those on my blog. I don't know if the address is scrolling across here, but it's about to scroll across the screen. Just wapeliusblogspot.com. You go to the 2D art section, and you'll see all kinds of fun stuff. Portraits that I used to paint. See, I'm starting to add in a little more of a little more action here now on bolters. Starting to think, okay, is there maybe a little horizon line there? I always used to paint the bolters that way. Just realized we need to incorporate some of our golds over here. And it just starts to... It's like you're sculpting, but with paint. You think, well, wait a minute. Somebody already sculpted that. Why do I have to re-sculpt it? Well, it's tiny. And it means you gotta actually give it some help, give it some shape. And that's sort of what we're doing. And see, even the bolter there starts to have a bit of a, I guess, a little more of an aged look to it. What do we got in there? We've got the... Actually, yeah, see, with the Space Marines, that's like some kind of that rubber stuff, but here it's not. Now let's see if we can't work ourselves some interesting... It's not a highlight right in here. Is that on screen? Okay, yeah, it's on screen. Still waiting for your contrast paint order. Yeah, I was not super surprised when it was sold out on Miniature Market and some of those places. When it was sold out on the GW site, that's about, oh, okay, looks like a few folks might be getting this stuff. And it's kind of weird because I was just telling people today that June was supposed to, for me anyway, was going to be oil painting month because I love me my oil painting, and people know that. Bethany knows that. All the patrons know that. Not sure if Aviad is watching here, but he knows. He loves his oil paints too. But then this contrast paint thing came along, and everybody was asking me about it. And I thought, well, as much as I love my oils, I gotta set those aside, because otherwise, how the heck am I going to answer people's questions about contrast paint when I'm using oil paints? Now, I'm going to actually have to get some reflections in here too. See, that's all dark in there, but guess what? I'm going to get some of this greenish color here and stick some of that in there. Yep, that's better. And well, there's a lot of questions. Now, does it work with a wet palette? Can you mix it with regular paint? Because there was people leaving comments earlier today that they were told in no uncertain terms, you cannot mix it with regular paint. You'll die. Everyone will die if that happens. Well, how many times have I mixed this stuff with regular paint? Oh, yeah, here's a little something. So this is oh gosh, at least a 2-part series that I did for the patrons there. This is all done with the contrast paints, but mixing in the regular paint. So this big, here's how big that is. that's him, that's her. And I've got another one that I'm going to be doing too. This one here, so this is going to be more like Ruby Dragon right here. I'm going to use it. I've got basically some World War II naval vessels that I'm going to be using to paint that with. I'm going to try and do all the things they say you cannot do with it. So it looks like bummer. It looks like the on-screen chat thing is not keeping up with the actual chat. Not sure why it does that. Seems to go for a while and then it just dies. But I can see I've got my YouTube window open. Good thing I left that open just in case. So you're just trying to find now some reflected light. I want to get some purity seal action going on here. So you're just trying to find some lighter areas in those greens. So let's do something here with the purity seals before we forget about those. And I always, again, I like to give them a little bit of almost a pinkish type color there, as opposed to the warm red. There's so many other warm colors in this. And I know people always wonder, well, how long do you work on things? Well, it kind of depends on the miniature itself and what has to be done with it. There's just stuff I can't necessarily do here on screen because I either can't see it, or I have to hold the miniature in some wacky, crazy way that you're not going to be able to see. So I'm getting back into my fluorescent paint here, because we got to really crank up these flames here on our candles, which means maybe even cranking up some of our reflected light on some of these areas. Nothing fancy. And then I'm doing that same kind of linear highlight. Now let's see if I can't spread a touch of that candle glow. I'm going to use a bigger brush, I think, for my candle glow there. I'll go back to my watercolor brushes for that. So let's get a little bit of an orange right there and right there. And let's see if we can't even get that a touch lighter right there. So see your candle flame right there on that high point. Maybe even, yeah, we'll see if we can't even on the sleeve and there. Just indicate maybe a little distant glow from that candle there. And now let's do a little bit of glazing here. All right, where are we at on screen? Looks like, okay, good. See, and I'm just going to throw a little bit of a glaze right here. And you'll see what that does once I see it. Now there's a little more of a shadow there, and then we play off of that. A little bit of candle glow there. So we really transformed that just with one quick little glaze, and that was just to contrast paint there, thin down a little bit with water. See, we did a little more. We're going to do that same thing over here. Same thing over there. I guess you have to be willing to sort of make some of these little changes here along the way. All right, let's get back into the face. We haven't messed with that in quite a while. Now, normally, especially on stuff like around the eyes and everything, that's definitely going to be my liner paints, but I'm just trying to not use those. Now imagine something that you've used for years. It's part of your overall painting regimen for years and years, and all of a sudden you tell yourself, nope, I can't use that anymore. Or at least not while I'm doing these. Because again, trying to give people an alternative to the Reaper liner paints. Now, David, we were just talking about that. If anybody has any clue when those are gonna go on pre-order, I'm guessing maybe not for, I don't know, what, 3 months would you say? Maybe in the fall. That is definitely Well, and if anybody that knows, you know that I've been using the Army Painter series to rebuild all my Lord of the Rings stuff. And if there's new Sisters of Battle, that before I heard about this, I still had a box of 10 metal ones. I was actually gonna prep those up and use those in an army painting thing, but well, heck, if they're coming out with new Sisters, as soon as those suckers come out and as soon as I have them in the house here, I will most definitely do an army painting series on it. Now I have a few different color schemes, and what I might do, because I don't know, here, I'm going to go to a different scene here. This one? No, here it is. Okay, so I don't know if you can see that some of their robes are white in these images here. Maybe this, yeah. See how their robes are white and the armor is green? That was kind of how I color coded them. If they were, oh gosh, I think the lower the rank you were, the more green there was. So that's why the seraphim were just all gold. That's why your retributors had more gold in them. My repentia, yeah, they were all just lots of green, barely any gold because their armor had been taken away or broken, right? That's what happens to them. Actually, right now, what am I? Oh, I'm taking some really, really old Khorne Berserker demons from 2003, and that's the current Army Painter series. Unfortunately, I don't have those guys in here. I'd show them to you if I could, but they're in the photo area. So now I'm starting to get some. Got to get a few highlights in here now. Just a couple there. Now here we definitely have to. This is an area I haven't really touched since the early portion of this, so I'm going to get back into here. And it looks there's something right here. I can't tell what that is. I don't know if it's cloth or exactly what the heck that is. Like I said, I didn't want to study this too much before I went down or sat down to do this. Here we go. I'm going to get, yeah, need a little more of a highlight horizon line there. It's weird. It's that whole similar but different. I mean, there are parts of this that are eerily similar, and there's parts that are really different. And I know she has some scars too on her face on that right hand side. So we'll try to simulate a little bit of that maybe. Yeah, I know that this can be, for folks that haven't really seen this kind of method before, it really does seem super chaotic. And it drives people nuts sometimes because they want work in progress shots from us or whatever, and we always warn them. We say, we really don't want that. You can't handle the truth. And they'll see it and they'll just go crazy. And then, like in an hour, you'll show them another work in progress thing, and they say, but wait a minute, that's not the same miniature. And we say, yes, it is. It's just, it kind of has to look like nothing, 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 and then boom. And see, this is where I'm taking, again, the wildwood, and it's just mixed with white here. This is the equivalent of brown liner mixed with white. See, look at it, it makes a really interesting, almost sort of grayish brown here. But again, it's semi-translucent. I can even throw some of that on the bolter there. Give myself some horizon line there. Okay, went out the candles here. We need to get some cleanup work on these two. Just some of our initial glaze is in there. We need to lighten up some of these areas. They just got a little too dark around them. And then remember I was promising you some action on the base. So I was going to do that now. I'm going to go back to the number 8 round here. Now the thing about the fluorescent paint is it's really thick, but it's also really translucent. So I'm just sort of scumbling that over the top. Give it a little bit of a glow there. That's it. Not much. And again, that's something I will tone down here and there with some glazes. But I need to put it there so I remember it's there. And I'm also going to remember to put some of that here. And it's not a dry brush, actually. That's the wild thing about this, the fluorescent paint. Let's see. I'm going to go with this. It's got the purple. Going to see if I can't start to focus even a little bit more on the eyes here. And if this goes off screen, I do apologize for that. Yeah, I really love doing the Rohan. That was, I've been wanting to do a Rohan army for years, and this was my first chance. Alright. I'm also going to get some really rich darks in here. I wish people wouldn't refer to it as black lining or whatever, because it's just, that's not what it is. It's really more like a hyper-controlled glaze. Because that's pretty darn watery right there. Alright, I'm going to... Yeah, I need to get some darks in here. Under here. And I have to start thinking about, okay, what are we doing with this purity seal? Are we just going to do the... We'll throw a few lines in there, and then we'll see if we can't do our little symbols on there. And I'll show you in just a second here. Gotta see where else those purity seals are. There's one over here too, but that's got a little bit of our glow on it. And you really can't see it. And this one here also has a bit of a glow on it, so I have to have a lighter touch on that one. Alright, we need to, I'm going to get my, here it is. So I'll take some of that white, mix it with some of the Flash Gets yellow. We'll just see if we can't find ourselves a few highlights over here now. And it is this constant back and forth shifting around. I know it can maybe be a little maddening or whatever, because you're expecting one part to be finished, and just before that seems to be finished, there's a leap to another part. And we're going to get ourselves some more lights here. And what I'm trying to do, and I'll show you just a second here, is this, some of this action here that you see on on his foot. And on his feet, see how we have sort of a light, it's almost like a radial type thing, light, then dark, then light again. It just kind of gives the foot a little more added roundness to it. And then, still thinking in terms of those bright little sort of spectral highlights there. There's so many of these different sigils and rosarius things that are all over the place. I'm sure if this is a whole unit of them, I'll get mighty familiar with them. I mean, heck, that Rohan unit that you saw, it took me a while to figure out what was what on that. Because I was very familiar with them, but I hadn't painted them before. So actually, I'm gonna look and see. All right, so we've been at this, geez, hour and 20 minutes. That's it. Yeah, I think so. That's it. So I think that shows that you can do this stuff in a reasonably timely fashion. And speaking of units that have all Sky Earth, I think this is Army Painter Series 4. And here, I'll grab this unit and show you right here. So there's actually 13 guys in this unit, and you can see we've got the Sky Earth going on their helmets. Then I had another series that was even more complicated. So we've got again, another Lannister unit here. More of the Sky Earth, non-metallic. Yeah, that one was intense. That was really, really intense. What am I on? Army Painter Series 10? Yeah, Rohan was Series 9. The Berserkers are Series 10. And each Army Painting series is 12 episodes long. No, 5 episodes long, 12 hours, 12, 13 hours or so. And I take you through the process of making the bases. Obviously here, well, it comes with the base. And I thought, well, all right, I'll just show people how to mess around with the base. But the first episode is always doing something special with the basing. And each series I try to include something different, something more with freehand, maybe something with metallics, maybe something with oils. Now here, I need to get some darks, and that's where I'm going to go into that purple with some of the Fire Slayer Flash. Just going to get some definition here. Hopefully you can see. It looks that way. Hey Tyler, how's it going? Yeah, she was looking so crazy at the start, that's for sure. So here's where I need to get some of that darker stuff. Yeah, and I'm going to go back. What is it? The Fire Slayer Flash. That's what it is. There we go. And we need to get some definition right there. So we're starting to get a little bit of that sort of dark, light, dark going on there on the feet. Here we're going to do that same thing there where we try and get a light going down, and then find ourselves another reflected light here. Want to tilt that towards the green though, so I had to go get some green. Now let's see what's going to happen. We add a little bit of white to that green and try and get some work on the Rosarius here. Boy, yeah, some of these, the names are starting to come back to me. It has been a while. Sometimes it seems it was super recent ago, but then you start to think, well, 2014, yeah, that was a while ago. Yeah, I had an exorcist that I had scratch built. I had a, was it a Hydra? I had a flame, the flame one too. What was the flame one? Oh, that was the immolator. That's it. Yep. I had converted. I had an immolator. Had a whole bunch of different sisters vehicles. That was a blast. Well, just they didn't do very much in that tournament. That's for sure. So I'm gonna get myself some darker shading on my green here. That's a little better. Underside of the armor there. So I've been adding a lot of lighter stuff. Now I gotta add some darker. Just need to shove that down in there. It's not gonna be very glorious, but it just needed to be there. So I just did my little glaze there of my green. I'm gonna actually throw a little bit of some purple striations into the hair here. Is that on screen? Yeah, it is. And that, we did all the lighter stuff. Now we go back in with this darker color, and that starts to provide a different type of definition. I just mixed some of the white with the Fire Slayer. I was gonna do some stuff on the candles here. I'll end up throwing a couple more glazes on these things too. Let's see, how much more do I want to go around that edge? Now I'm going to go back in to the leather work here on that bodice, try and get some additional lights in here. And people ask me, so what would your preferred paint be or whatever? Well, I'd much rather just use, well, I love my oil paints, I'll tell you that right now. I'd love to be using oil paints right now, but we're doing contrast paints. I'd love to be using my Reaper liner paints, but we're doing contrast paints. Now I do need some kind of blue out here. Let's see. I'll just throw this out there. What is that? That is Altdorfgard blue. I wonder if that ends up on a lot of the, oh, what are they? The Sigmarites or whatever. Just hitting that one diode there, and also going to get some on the bolter housing there. This is pretty translucent. Fairly translucent. Let's go in with our white here, and it's got a little touch of the yellow in it. Flash gets yellow. Yeah, flash gets yellow. And then let's see if I've got it looks like I have some of the orange left here. And we'll do a little bit of a diode type thing here. Keep that orange going in some other place besides just the candle glow. So this is just mixing, just taking some water here. And every so often I say, I better tone that down. So we're kind of toning things down and then lighting them up again in almost equal measure sometimes. But it's that willingness to work back and forth. Now, I see that just needs to be green there too. So I'm just going to throw the green over the top of that. And then we'll go back in later once that's had a chance to settle down. Speaking of green, I'm going to take some of that. And then we're going to have a little bit of a panel right here. Let's see if we can't just kind of draw something inside that panel. And almost then give it a little bit of an outline. And then a line or two underneath that. Oh, let's see if I can't mess around with the eyes here a little bit. I'm going to hope that's on screen for you. You have to figure out which way do we want her to be looking at us. And sometimes I've actually sometimes gone in and redrawn the eyes a few times just because I didn't have them end up where I wanted them to be. And just trying to get something that's a little bit lighter underneath the eyebrows there, because you don't want that just to be a mass of dark. So once again, trying to make sure you guys can see it. There we go. Gonna go back into my lighter color here. That's taking the wildwood, mixing some of the white in there. I'm just trying to get, you can see some lights onto that. I'm just assuming leather bodice. Just gonna assume. And I'll just use some of it's a screaming skull, I believe, here. Just try and reinforce some of the wings there a touch. Now there's the little, oh, there's little studs on here. So let's see, that would have been brown liner mixed with some, probably the maiden flesh, something like that. Yeah, let's. All right. I'm going to do a quick little question. Bethany. Oh, a terracotta warrior armor. So let's see. Oils might make it easier. Oh, geez, I think so. Because, and that's what the oils do. Yeah, where you can sort of mix them together on the figure. That would be really huge there. And actually, geez, if you wanted to get the terracotta texture, you could even sort of as a final layer or something like that. You mix a little bit of the weathering powders into your oils or something like that, and that you sort of have a little bit of the that texture, that rough texture. That could be interesting too, because I've mixed the oils together with weathering powders actually to make mud for tanks, and that has kind of a grit to it. Definitely has a grit to it. Okay, which part? Okay, that's it's actually the back of the purity seal, so we won't mess with that too much. We won't put any kind of writing on there. We're actually going to tone that down a bit. Yep. I didn't realize there was that many purity seals on her. I think just the nature of the way the plastic kits are here, they could kind of hang a few more of those off of them a little bit easier. Now let's see if I can't get a little bit of. I'm gonna go back in. Just gonna grab some of my white again. Throw that out here. You can see I'm just taking the white and mixing it with the different contrast paints to make some light colored. So like here, this is the contrast stuff. I'll be taking the stylish purple and mixing that in with the white to do stuff like this. Let's see. That was my second question about mixing it. Yeah, now what happens is it sort of acts like a quick drying mechanism for the oils because it sort of sucks all of the oils out of them. So it can make those dry a whole bunch faster. And not like instantly or whatever, but it can definitely have impact the drying time. And now it depends too how much of the powder you put in, and the powder can also then it can impact the oil color too. You know what tone you're getting out of that. But it'll definitely give you a little bit of grittiness there. And terracotta definitely has that look to it. And I know, well, Secret Weapon, geez, that might be hard for you to get, but they actually make quite literally a terracotta weathering powder. So that could really be fascinating there. Now on a grenade here, I'm just going to try and snatch a few little highlights there. Hopefully that shows up. And again, if things go off the screen or whatever, or it just gets hard to see, the focus gets weird, it's just because I got to hold this where I can see it. Here, let's see if I can't. I'm going to try and do a little bit more with my wings here on the inquisitorial symbol. Well, I painted that on many a base, that's for sure. Actually, yeah, if you look at my basing techniques, I only have so many scenes. I wish I could have had more. But yeah, you check out the Sister of Battle army on the blog there, you'll see that massive cathedral that I built is the army display board. I still got that. I never really had the chance to finish that off, but well, maybe now I can. So again, that is the Silas purple that's sort of acting like a de facto brown liner paint. And I'm going to get me a little bit of, need a bit of a darker line here. So let's see if we can do that. Right here. And there. Seems to do the trick there. What about here? I got to darken that down. That just got too light, too fast. Alright. Gonna give myself a little bit of a orange glaze in here. That sounds more like a baking show thing than a painting thing. And that's just the straight up GW paint there. Just using that as a bit of an opaque. Yeah. Yeah, it starts to tone a few things out. Oh, I see I gotta put a got to reflect the candle on this part of the robe here. Holy smokes, forgot all about that. It's sitting there, it's all over the armor section there, and absolutely none of it's on the robe. Well, better rectify that here. So I'm just getting a little bit of the orange glow in that. See, parallel to where the candlelight is there, a little bit. It can't hurt because there's another candle on the other side. Now, your Rosarius here, that should be kind of reflective. Let's see if I can't reflect some of that candle light onto that too. We're gonna just kind of pump up some of our little fire, little flame cast here on our, oh gosh, I don't know if you'd actually call those cauldrons per se. That's not quite as intense as a cauldron probably. Now I do want to get a little, just a tiny indication, some of that over there. Maybe, yeah, just a little touch of that on the underside of the bolter over there. Which I'm assuming they still call him that. I could be wrong. It's been a while. Oh yeah, there is a terracotta powder, right? I could swear there is one. I Lord knows I could certainly be wrong, but some tells me that there is a terracotta powder. I actually did a painting video once where all I did was use rubbing alcohol and the powders to paint an entire miniature. That was one of the more unusual videos I ever did, to say the least. So now I'm just going to try and just go around in a few areas and find, like on the bolter here, there's just areas that I can refine a little bit. And this, just the nature of this beast right here, yeah, I could spend 3 more hours after this is over just trying to refine things, look back and go, oh yeah, okay, I need to correct this over here. Now I want a little more of this over here. Now I want a little less of this over here. Let's get ourselves some highlights over here. Then I got to think about my green over here. Because I found more Rosarius beads over here that I didn't know about. It was really wacky the way you put this thing together. This arm, this thing was just kind of hanging here. And then the arm kind of comes in with the Rosarius beads after the fact, sort of. And that was a little confusing when I first did it. I'm gonna try, yeah, get a little more light into that green. I don't even know how the heck I remembered that. It's been a long time since I last messed with that color of weathering powder, because, well, obviously I've been focused on the historical stuff. So yeah, we need to get some green over here too. See, right in here. Bang, right there. See, I just reflected the green onto that there. Yeah, sorry if the camera is being a little jiggly there. And also, I think I've had something along the lines of 3 hours of sleep in the last 40 hours or something like that. Math escapes me right now, to say the least. Alright, let's go back up to the face here, see if we can do something fun with that. You know, I'm gonna just, well, nah, I think I won't necessarily do the blue woad just yet. I gotta see what other things are happening here. Speaking of which, roses here. We should mess with these a little bit. I'm gonna get some of that flesh tier red back out here. Not gonna take much of it. And we'll do that up with the white here. Again, just mixing a contrast paint with the white. And then we start to work that in here. I think there's, yeah, a couple of leaves there. I'll have to go back in with some greens on those. Just gonna pick out some petals here. Some more, and all it is just white mixed with that flesh tears red, and I mixed the white with the blood angels red. It wouldn't be this cooler, almost purple pink. Now let's see if I can't. I'm gonna try and see if I can't get a little bit of a. That's what I'm looking for. So I was just looking for give almost a little bit of, not necessarily rouge on the face, but just a little more of a. It was just looking a little deathly palo there, and I wanted to give it a little bit of a little more liveliness there. And I'm gonna go back up in here. So we got there. We need to get some almost a little bit of reflected light in there. Yeah, just now we got a little bit of a distinction from one side of the face to the other. Also, gonna try and get a little shadow in there. Maybe a little shadow under the hair. And get still working with that stylish purple. Again, sorry if you can't see what I'm doing too easily. All right. And yeah, I'm gonna go back into. Yeah, I'm gonna go back into my that brown over here again. That is the Screaming Skull. That's mixed with the the wildwood. Yeah, the wildwood. And I see we got a purity seal here that we just needed to lighten up. That now we got a little bit more emphasis there on that purity seal. A little more separation. Let's see. I always have to decide what the heck to do with these hoses and stuff that come over the top here. Do I make them lighter, darker? They sort of scream for having some kind of highlights on them, of course. And now I gotta start thinking about getting purples into my golds too. We had plenty of yellow, plenty of the orange. We got plenty of the green. I always like to get purples into the golds. There we are. And what I'll do, like always, I try to make a blog post with finished images and stuff like this so you can see what it looked like ultimately when it was done. And let's see, the blog ad. It's just www.blogspot or Wapelius at blogspot.com or wapelius.blogspot.com, something like that. You'll figure it out. And that's where you can see the original Sisters of Battle army that we're going to try and mimic whenever it is the GW comes out with the new Sisters. Whenever that may be. I'm sure other folks have way better knowledge of that than I do. Heck, I don't even know when the latest Song of Ice and Fire stuff is coming out. That's another, as you can see, I've done a few series of the Song of Ice and Fire and got more of those coming up, but there's also more live sessions too. So this is where again, that is the, not Waystone, Warp Lightning, Ghost Tint mixed with a little bit of my sort of lighter greens. And it's very muted. It's kind of a middle tone. Let's see, now I'm able to cover over with that original contrast paint. Just kind of left a nasty little, not much going on there. Here, I'm going to take some more of this. That's the Screaming Skull. Now we're going to start to build up this a little bit here too. Now, what else do we want to do with this? We're going to go in here again with, that's not my green, that's more of like a tan layer. And that's the crazy thing about golds, that you think it should just be yellow everywhere, and if you do that, well, you have Imperial Fists. You certainly have that, but not so much in the way of gold. Now, on mine, I had done some freehand things on the robe. I'm going to just maybe not do that right around here. Who knows, when I'm doing the unit, well, yeah, there'll definitely be freehand on the unit, because I always try to make freehand a part of every single army painting thing. Even on the Rohan guys, we did that. I think it was on the shields, yeah. Yeah, that gear, well, I have, and I'll show you the unit that I was going to do with the oils, and, well, I still am. But here, this is, where's the, here we go. So it's right here, I have a whole unit of the Mountains Men. So see all those different colors that are in there? See, I got purples there, there's almost a green. And here you got the yellows and the blues and such, or yellows and purples next to each other. Look at that, purples and greens. The oil painting stuff just makes it so much easier to do this. Whereas here with the acrylics, you have to glaze, and you put in some darks again, and you glaze like here. And I'm taking some of this yellow here, and just kind of glazing some of that back in here, just a subtle glaze of that in. With the oils, you can just kind of pop it in there and then push it around, and it just kind of makes itself. And that's, well, the way I know oils are just faster is that every single army painting series that was done with acrylics took 5 episodes, and every single oil series, no matter how many miniatures or what type they were, only took 4. It's just the Morgul Knights. That was, yeah, those are guys on horseback. There's a half a dozen of them. But with the oils, it just took less time. Again, I've got to get these. Got to figure out what's really going on with these skulls, with this sigil right here. And some more. Yeah, I got to get some highlights over here too. There's so many of these little doodads here. So many of them. Just trying to keep track of all of them. Yeah, it's weird. I wonder if it seems like the chat only lasts for about an hour and then it just dies. I just looked over there now and it's gone. And I'm not about to sit there and fool around and try and bring that back. Well, there's more stuff too. There, instead, not just the army painting, but the Big Child creative stuff. The whole purpose of those was to also do oils there on 75mm figures. So I'm looking forward to that too. We're getting some lights over here on this shoulder pad. Like I said, I can just work back and forth. I can take some purple in here, do a little bit of glazing in there, tone some things down. That, well, heck, purple and green always make a nice gray. Let's get more of a... Just looking to get a little more light on this bit of equipment here. But yeah, there's a whole ton of different colors that are going on here. None of which are actually... Well, only a few are yellow. I'm kind of putting a pink in here now. And that's just what gives it that... Again, if you're looking for metal, it's got to reflect all this stuff in the area around it. And I will just, I'm going to maybe throw a little bit of yellow in on some of this. Yeah, that could be a nice little added interest there. Gonna go here, give this a little bit of light here. That's like it's casting down onto that too. We're trying to add a little bit of the really bright area of our flame here down towards the heart of it. And I needed to get a little more reflection down there. Because sometimes things can look less like metal and more like, I don't know, cloth or just something very flat, not terribly reflective. Okay, there we go. Gonna see if I can't work in just a touch of reflected light there on that cheek. That's what on the jaw. That's what I'm looking for. There's a little bit there. Gonna go a little more. See if I can't do that. There we go. Yeah, and it was weird. I didn't really realize they were gonna put that many scars on the face. Yeah, and I love to work on the oils with small stuff, on big stuff, whatever. Vehicles. Let's see, so it's 4:19 here. So this is 2-ish hours. Because there's been a lot of sidebars and everything else. Just looking to get a few muted greens into here. See if I can't. I try and get a little more definition in my wings here. That does it. Yeah, there we go. And it has been interesting to see what's similar and what's different from the old style Sisters of Battle to this new style. I would say they're maybe taller by, a millimeter. Maybe a millimeter or two taller, it seems. Definitely a little skinnier. Now I've got another one of these, and I could do it in a different color scheme. As it, Kathy's gonna be doing one on her stream too. I had a pretty nifty, and you can see it on the blog actually. Sort of a dark, really dark burgundy red and black scheme. That was fun. Alright, I'm gonna go back in maybe with a slightly. Now here's another one of those craft brush things. This is what, number 6 round. This particular set, it was different. It had some like 30 brushes in there. It went all the way up to a 12. See, these are both from the same set. I think this one's a 10. That one's a 10, so it had a 10, 12, 10, 8, and a 6. And there's some like 6 of each brush or whatever. Those were pretty neat. Oh, and I've noticed that the wet palette does keep your contrast stuff, because this should all be dead. Because when I, like here, that's just the regular palette there. Oh, it died hard. And it died hard and it died fast on there. Let's see. I want to see just how much of my purple I had in there. Just looking to do a few. I'm going to grab my Leviathan blue here too, and so you can see I've continued to glaze this whole entire time from the get-go. Been willing to just keep on doing some glazes. Now I see there's one more purity seal that I want to get some writing on, and that's where I love the brown liner for doing this kind of thing right here on the purity seals. Where are we at? There we are. I'm going to get that a little less watery. Just doing myself some broken lines there. And then here, I feel like I need me some dark right up there. Yeah, now that was the kind of cause like, what the heck is going on? I'm missing some contrast here somewhere. And that was where. Now, obviously, doing one of these in oils doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is doing a whole bunch of things in oils all at once. And that's why I love using it, not just for army painting, but painting large creature and a bust all kind of at the same time. The Morgul Knights were fun because they were all super, like your terracotta warriors. They're all going to be real. That's going to be a compressed color range to say the least. The oils made it a lot easier to get nifty variation in such a super subtle color scheme. And as I go along this, I start to say, okay, yeah, I need more of a highlight here. Oh gosh, that stands out too much over there. And remember, this was that huge mess when it started out, and then you start to gradually work your way. Things start to take shape. You're sculpting with a paintbrush, basically. You help out the skull. He can only do so much for you. You gotta do the rest yourself. Now, whether you're using contrast paints or not, I mean that's up to you. And our whole discussion on oils, people say, well, does contrast paints make things go faster for us? No, they're just about the same. Want things to go faster, I'm using oils, no doubt about it. Because you see how the paint stand wet on the palette here, just essentially your miniatures become the wet palette when you use oils. So that's why I don't tell people or anything like, run out and get contrast paints or whatever. If you gotta do it and you haven't done it yet, just get a few. And that's the other thing too. Geez, I wish I had mentioned it all along. I think you can see I've been working with the darker contrast paints. People, for the most part, when you hear them talking about them, they're way more satisfied with the darker, more intense contrast paints. The lighter ones. Now, if you work them over, say, white primer, and you're doing a certain thing with them, those will work a little better. But just in general, the easiest success people have tends to be with the darker ones. I just instinctively got the darker ones because I was looking to replace the liner paints. So it just kind of naturally fit in with what I was doing. And again, just trying to find some little bit of this lighter green here. So hopefully some of this made sense for it. I know it's kind of crazy and out there, but I was just trying to pose a different way of using the contrast paints from simply slopping them on. I mean, you saw we had some pretty brisk application. We'll call it that. Yeah, we'll say brisk application. That sounds good. Now others would say chaotic application. But it's my story. I get to write it the way I wish. Let's see if I can't. That definitely looks more like cloth there instead of the Space Marine kind of rubberized stuff, that seal in between the two sections of armor there. Let's see, does that need to be dark too? I think so. So again, sorry if this just on camera was bouncing around a little bit. Yeah, let's see if we can't get some highlights on the lips here. And that's the little bit of that screaming skull, a little bit of the flesh tear red. Yeah, yeah. Take some of that away. Extend that out. There we go. Now you're getting a little bit more of a face happening there. Now, what I might just do is I'm going to bring out this is that fluorescent paint. For those that didn't see it earlier, it's just Vallejo, and there's just nothing quite like it. So we're going to throw some of that. It's how intense that is. My goodness. I'm going to get back in with a larger brush here. And this is going to sort of rejuvenate some of my glow. Yeah, let's get just, yeah. Let's looking to get a touch of that there. And along these little candle holders there, and now maybe a little bit along my base on the marble there. Trying to let the thing cast a shadow on the ground too. Because this stuff is real, really transparent, like I've said. And that's why I tend to call it a dry glaze. Because you don't have to mix it with water to make it basically like a glaze. Here, let's take a touch more of that. Just trying to, again, trying to cast a glow where I think there should be. Not making this anywhere near as intense as, say, the Chaos Demons, that army painting series that I'm doing, where it's pretty darn intense. Yeah, I'm going to tone down a little bit of the on the lettering there, on the purity seal. Ah, there we go. Needed to get a little bit of sort of candlelight on that. And it's nice that the darkest part of my flame can be essentially the fluorescent paint. Because when you have a fluorescent orange as your darkest flame color, then you got something going. So where are we at now? So we're at 4:30. So not quite 2.5 hours. That's not bad considering, especially, I don't know, geez, it's been a year and something since I last painted a Sister of Battle, and they certainly weren't for my army. They were for somebody else's. I'm just going to try and Yeah, I know people drill out their barrels and stuff. There was no time to do that for this. Who knows? Maybe when I do the army painting Sister Battle thing, I'll drill out gun barrels and everyone will be happy. Just getting a little bit of this, a little bit of blue here in my mid-tones. I'll do the same thing over here. And because there's a little bit of that, I almost called it a ghost tint. Because there's a little bit of your contrast paint in there. I could have used contrast medium. Now, yeah, I'll show you. Where is the... here we go. So, this was I think it was my latest stream right here. So what I did was for these guys, I took the contrast medium and mixed it with flesh colors to see if I could make sort of a flesh tone glaze. Oh, and I was messing around with blood effects. So I took the Blood Angels red, the Flesh Tears red, and was doing blood effects with that. So, yeah, this was one of the ones that I was doing on the stream there. There's some of the blood effects that we made with it. I'll be curious to see what they do for Seraphim on these new Sisters of Battle. If they come out with a whole bunch of different units, I mean, I'll make each unit a separate series, that's for sure. Just like with Rohan, I'm doing a separate series on the cavalry, and then because the first one was infantry based, so yeah, I'll do that too. I would imagine they're doing the vehicles. Well, maybe not. It would be nice because those vehicles are a little bit on the old side. Alright, let's get ourselves a bit of a darker green here. There we go. Just needed that. Gonna do that here. Just a bit right there. Alright. I do hope that seeing this maybe just gives you a few different ideas and how to approach not just using these, but your painting in general. Maybe if you think about using the larger brushes, think about what it's like to be able to work a little bit faster. And maybe you give the non-metallic stuff a thought if you haven't tried it before. Hopefully this just makes it seem a little less daunting. Because it seems like there's some tutorial stuff out there that just seems to make everything way more complicated than it is. It's like an IKEA instruction manual. And that's what I'm trying. I try to avoid the IKEA instruction manual phenomenon as much as I can when I'm doing these tutorials. Try to make it seem just much more, just set your mind at ease a little bit. Yeah, I'm going to get myself a couple of highlights on that. And there's times where you find you can't highlight things anymore, and then you realize, oh, yeah, well, I really need to just put more shading in there, more shadows. We've done all we can with the light. We need to put some shadows in. So I still got that original Wildwood, and this is like 2 hours later. This stuff's sitting on the palette. Believe me, it would all be dry. So wet palettes do work with this. And you can thin it with water once you're just kind of using it as a gentle glaze like this. So I think that was the other thing people weren't sure you could do with it, is could you just use it like a regular glaze? And I've been doing that, my goodness, for an hour and a half. Gonna get some additional darks in the hair. And that's essentially just a wildwood with a little bit of purple glaze right there. this is a really different color scheme from what you normally see for Sisters. You see a lot of white, you see the black all the time. There was no way I was doing that. That is one color scheme I just never doing for Sisters. I've seen that just so many times, and that's fine. But I just wanted to show something different. I think I'm just gonna make that more of a green. I'm gonna get some darker greens in there. Speaking of shading, I'm gonna actually take that, whatever that regular blue was, and mix it with some of the wildwood contrast. See if I can't even throw a little bit of that bluish gray into some of the armor here. Now I'm going to get some deeper greens in this area too. Remember, we did a little bit of this, and then we moved on to another thing, and now we're going to go back into that again. I still got some of my fleshed here is red. I'm going to get some richer shading in some of my roses here. Some of my purity seals. And all I did was I thinned it down with water, and it works fine. It works like a glaze once you do that, but at that point you're working pretty gently with it. You're not really trying to get a lot of coverage. I suppose I could use the contrast medium too. Yeah, I wanted to give that a break. I'd used it in the last several videos, and I was trying to go back to the original ones where we didn't have that, because I don't even think you can get it on the GW site. The store where we were at, where we got this, they had Wildwood, which is actually mostly sold out everywhere else, but they did not have the contrast medium. So let's see, yeah, see that wapeliusblogspot.com right there. I'll try to maybe even put a link in the description of this. I don't know how many links they'll actually let me put in the link in the description. Maybe I'll put a link to my sister's gallery there. Because I really did. I enjoyed that whole project. Oh yeah, I have I have Death Corps of Krieg Rough Riders. Well, they sort of function as Rough Riders. That could make an interesting army painting series too. And all of that stuff, not familiar with the Patreon page. It sometimes, well, a couple times a month, it's going to start getting more fast and furious now. But I take a unit, whether it's a half a dozen cavalry or 15, 20 Russian winter soldiers, and I do a whole series taking you from the process of basing them all the way freehand, non-metallic, whatever it takes, object source lighting, Army of the Dead. That whole thing was fluorescent paint and object source lighting. The whole thing, the entire unit painting was an exercise in fluorescent object source lighting. That was a blast. Right, so there's a few areas here. So I can still go in here and make this lighter. So that's more white with the wildwood. I can still try and get in here on some of these leather sections on that bodice and get a little more contrast there. Who'd have thought contrast with contrast paint? And sometimes I edit this, okay, I gotta step away from that area. And by working somewhere else, you get a little bit of a fresh perspective. I'm going to see if I can't get myself, I'm going to use that same mix over there and see if I can't get a little bit of reflected light over here. So what I'm seeing is, no matter how much light I add there, there's not a whole lot of stuff happening, which means I got to go darker, and poof, there it is. That's what it was. Remember I was telling you earlier, if you start adding lighter, it's not doing anything. That's a little bit of a, that's the miniature telling you, you got to go the other way. You got to go in the other direction. All right, now that's that, what was the name of that green? Moot green. I'm trying to think of the green. Oh, it was Goblin Green. Yeah, it was the old GW Goblin Green. I think I used that for a lot of my Sisters of Battle stuff to get that green. And two, I could take the, well, art coat, some kind of a gloss type thing, and go over the Rosarius beads, and they'll have a little bit of shininess to them, and actually sort of reflect the light. You would see 5 or 6, because there's, I think, 6 lights pointed in all different directions at this. And that's one way to get more, instead of trying to paint in that little point of light, I guess that's where I'm after. So see how we've got not just light dark, but it changes color there. See how that's, I'm working in a green here, sort of smoothing out that edge a little bit. See, we got green reflected over here onto that leg. I think, yeah, you can see that now. Now I had to avoid, I was just instinctively about to start putting a bunch of green flesh tone or green tones in on the skin. I thought, no. I am going to see if I can't throw just a little bit in here. Yeah, it needed that. I mean, I don't even know if you can see what the heck I just did, but I just plopped a little bit of a greenish color sort of in the shadow of the nose there. Just cause. So now I'm just trying to find a few more lights, but that's actually almost a greenish color that I'm using for the highlights there. So I just use green in a shadow and then green in a highlight on the face. Because if I just kept going with pink on there, well, it would just not what you want. You don't want just endless pink on the face. You need a little bit of something else, and that little something else was the greens. Here, there. Now this, I never really understood what that little piece was, that little square right there. Gosh knows how many times I painted that on the old Sisters of Battle, and it looks like I get to paint it again. Yes, indeed. Where's, I'm just going to get a brighter blue out here. One that I can mix with my white. Like so. And, yeah, After that, and let's see, I'll just mix a little bit of red in there with my fluorescent, and pop that there. Okay. I can say I need to get a little bit of orange there, reflecting that. Here, let's get a little, just again, it's just white. That's all it is. White is white no matter who makes it. Now, if they're off whites, like a linen white or some, okay. Yeah, you got difference there. Nice. The other one that I've got, and who knows, maybe I can find some more somewhere else and just maybe do a different type of base. Because, okay, I've done this once. I don't need to do this again. And I'd really like to paint my own Sisters of Battle iconography on it. I mean, the rose is neat and all that, but I'm going to take you to, which is that this scene right here? Yeah. So see that on the vehicle right there? See that angel right there? That was my kind of version of the Saint Celestine thing. And it said, with this holy fire ye shall be cleansed, I believe. I did a whole big base. Yeah, see there's that banner again. It's had all kinds of little iconography for that. Yeah. It had some different types of crosses, and so who knows? Maybe if they come out with vehicles, I can do all that kind of stuff on brand new Sisters of Battle vehicles. Now let's see what happens when I take the white and now mixing it with that's the Fire Slayer flash. And I'm just going to use that on some of these pouches here. Let's see, where else? Here's another pouch. Let's mix a little more with it and see how it turns. That's a really neat, sort of a grayish, reddish tan. And it would be a perfect, let's see what it would be like as a skin tone. Yeah, see a nice skin tone shadow color there, even. Alright, let's lighten up this pouch a little bit here, get some highlights on that. And all it is, I'm just mixing white with different contrast paints. It's what I used to do years ago. And by years ago, I mean 2013. It's really hard, just like I would suppose, in movie telling or storytelling or whatever. It's hard to come up with something that somebody hasn't already come up with. And that's sort of the way things are sometimes for paint. It seems like it's brand new and different, but yet it can sometimes be exactly the same. But that is, you can see I'm working some of that same, almost kind of pink color into here. I can even work it into my base here a little bit. I can work it in down here. Because, and Bethany's heard me say this, Aviad's heard me say this, lots of folks, color goes somewhere, it's got to go everywhere. You need that color unity. And that's kind of what we're after here. So I'm just going to, we've got so much of that up in here, can't have nothing but green in the base. So we've just added, get some of that. All it is, again, the Fire Slayer flash, words, yeah, it's late. Just some of that mixed with white. Here, speaking of which, I'm going to grab some more of that white. Gotta be careful with the skull thing. And this is, every time I do a basing thing where there's freehand, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know if that was for the patrons or not, but I did a thing of making some some granite bases, and I had all these designs and stuff, and I had to realize, okay, I can spend all this time painting this design and everything, and oh look, the figure's standing right on top of it. Fantastic. I suppose the good thing is it saves you some time painting it. The downside is, well, you were wanting to paint something there. So we just trying to give a hint of maybe a marble effect here on the lighter part of the symbol there, which you see she is so gracefully standing on. And we'll do that same thing. So we're gonna maybe see if we can't find a little bit of an edge here too. Not much. We don't want it to rival the armor. So it's always about, I'm just going to wipe that away. I said, whoops, that's too much there. Took a fraction of a second to just wipe that away and make it disappear. So, looking from above, we've got some, you can see we've got some decent glow there now. You can see how it's reflecting off the armor on her foot there. And if folks are coming in and you're seeing this a little bit later on in the process, because I want to say I am, well, actually now I'm pushing more like 2 hours, 40 something minutes in. And this was nothing but primer, but if you want to go back to the beginning, and I've got, oh gosh, is this the fourth? Yeah, this is the fourth contrast paint demo that I've done, and each time I try and do something different with it. Because the first one, that was the Song of Ice and Fire, the free folk doing their robes in all different colors. And I think the second one, yeah, that was doing the crossbowmen here. So again, you can see we've got that reflected, again, the red reflected into the armor, the plume reflected into the armor. That's why we've tried to reflect the green onto the armor here, reflect the base onto there. Obviously the candlelight there, but even some of this. So it's been a reflecting, we've been lots of reflecting today. And let's see if I can't. I'm just going to try and give these things a bit of a highlight there, and up here too. There we go. Now I gotta do the same thing on this side here. I need to get, that's what I need. I need to do the same thing on the other side. Yep. And I need to do the same thing over here. Alright, that was good. And now again, looking at my horizon line, I gotta get some brighter, few brighter tones there. Because sometimes you just don't notice it, so you see everything else. Alright. So actually I've got a little, yep, I still got a little life left in the fluorescent paint. And we're going to find a few, I see a few areas where I'm missing a few touches of it. But like I said, you got to be, it's weird because it's super thick and it's super translucent. It is two almost like diametrically opposed things. And yeah, I think actually some of that original mix there with the, is that the Iandin yellow? Yeah, that's still slightly viable there. And I'm going to take, this is the Shylish purple. That's now mixed actually with some of my, I like to call it palette sludge. So you can, as I said, maybe, I don't know, half an hour ago, something like that. Once you have enough paint established on here, you can start to just mix water with your contrast paint and just use it like a regular glaze. You can certainly mix it with regular paint because I've done that now for about, oh, this officially makes well over 20 hours of tutorials. So hopefully this shows some nice possible reflections here. I'm trying to get a little bit of a highlight across the top of that stupid square. I've always hated that stupid little square there. And it's still gonna be there on all the new sisters, I guess. Here, that's the other thing I need to get a little bit of. Is that little point of light right there? And maybe a highlight on a few of these, like up here. Just trying to get one there. And that, what I was saying on the Rosarius beads there. Let me get. Oh, we'll take out. I think I got art coat right here. Yeah. So I got some of this here. Mix this up. Oh, just throw it somewhere. Boom. I don't need very much of it, but it worked on a few other things. We're going to get rid of some of that excess. So I'm just going to hit the beads here. And I may give it a second go, a second layer, something like that. But what happens is that when the lights hit these individual beads, it just sort of, it gives it way more reflectivity than I could ever just paint on there. So there you have it. Also, too, I would want to use, I would do another thing with the sisters where I use metallic paints, because I don't get to do the whole TMM thing very often, and I would definitely want to give it a try. Because I'm certainly doing that with some of the Song of Ice and Fire stuff, where I'm painting the same unit in oils or the same unit in metallics. A lot of the Starks I was going to paint in metallics. Alright, now here I still gotta, I'm just not getting enough reflectivity, so I gotta go still lighter here. This is just, it's really interesting. Yeah. That little bit right there. Now I've got a light, dark, light, and then I've got to go in with, this is, again, my regular white here. Give myself a horizon line, like that broken horizon line, something that's interrupted. And I'm going to try and get a little of this on the bolter here. I need, yep, that edge. Certainly needed it. But there's reds in here. It's not all just reflecting that. There's some blues in there. There's all kinds of wild, crazy colors in there. And I'm just gonna, yep, just decided to make a little bit of a glaze there. And this needs to be, yeah, So I needed to raise up that part of the horizon line a touch there. I had to deepen that dark. Now I've got it. Speaking of darks, down here, right, and that's just the Shyless purple. I'm using it sort of like my brown liner. It almost be more like my red liner, actually. So it's shyish purple. Maybe it's pronounced a different way. Don't really care. And for all the green stuff, I would just basically taking the contrast warp lightning here, mixing that in with my regular paints so that I could just do some fun things with my greens here. And then to darken the greens, sometimes it was wildwood mixed with the warp lightning green mix, and then sometimes it was the Shyless purple. And this is kind of the fun, more relaxed stage. It's a wee bit less frenetic than when we first started. And I know it's tough for people because they see just paint being slopped on all over the place and they just go, I don't need to see this. This is horrible. And I wish they would stay through for this part of it because I think they assume that the whole miniature is going to be like it is at this stage. And that should never really be the case. This should be sort of the last stage. Now I need to find myself a few more highlights along this. And I need one right across the top there. Needed that. Oh, I think I need to do something similar over here too. Yeah. And there. Just had a little bit of a brushstroke go haywire there. Now let's see if I can't. I gotta make sure there's a shadow under there, because if there's not, it's gonna lead to some, well, wait a second, what's going on here? So I may even have to just go back in there and yeah, I'm gonna go back in here and restore a little bit of shadow there. But now I've also got to get a little bit of touch of orange over here. And that's that Vallejo fluorescent orange. For those that didn't get to see it earlier. And sometimes I put it there and I go, oh man, that's just too much. I gotta tone that down. So I just tone it down. That's all. And like we've said before, the wet palette can actually make a big old difference with the contrast paints. Much to my surprise. Actually, when I sealed this, and it's just, like I said, just a used Chinese food container. Obviously washed out. But some of that stuff, I've had it stay wet in my little cups inside that palette for days. So once again, using the Shyless purple because I want my red here, but I got to get some darks in my red here, and that there is no texture to the hair. It's just a helmet. It's very flat, so you're gonna have to paint that in yourself. See, giving myself some little striations in there. And my wings here. A little more definition there. A little more of a, right there on the crest of that, a highlight. So let's see, how many contrast paints did we really actually use on this? Oh, sorry, Bethany. Thanks a bunch. Yeah, I'll try and do another one of these. What the heck is this? Saturday. I'll try and do another one in the middle of the week. And I don't know if it'll be oils or contrasts or whatever. But thanks again for watching, though. I appreciate everybody for watching this and hanging out with me in the chat and stuff, keeping me company. Still got to get me Tim Tams, though. Here, I'm just going to try and, yeah, needed to fade that out a little bit. Here. And this also to it, that's a little bit of my orange color and the Shylish purple mixed together. And this is just, what was that? The flash gets yellow mixed with the Iandin. I need to get something in there too. And now I'm going to slip a little bit of orange into here. So you can see the reference pictures again in the corners. That was my old Sisters of Battle army. And I'm already starting to think about how can I reprise that color scheme again. So that's sort of what we're doing here. All the while thinking about where can I find some variety in my golds. Like here, that's just, see, I can go back in. That is the just Iandin here mixed with a little bit of your flash gets yellow. Like I said, someone just the other day, or maybe it was earlier today, they either commented or whatever, and told me that somebody would look them in the face and told them that you cannot mix regular paint with the contrast paints. It can't be done. And I've painted at least now 30 miniatures that way. I've done at least, oh gosh, 20, 30 some odd hours of video tutorials that way. Because we're about to chalk up 3 more hours. Actually, we're already at 3 hours here of mixing the contrast paints with regular paints. My next experiment is gonna, well, and I've already done it, not on a filmed thing yet, but mix them with the Reaper paints, mix them with the Creature Caster paints, Pro Acryl. I mean, they go by the paint of 1,000 names. So now just trying to get in a few last little dark outlines there. See, this is where my purple and my green just are starting to meld together a little bit. And now I'm going to get in with some of my yellow up here, because we had all this dark here. It can't just be dark up there. And I'm going to get a little more of the Iandin mixed in to make it a little more transparent, sort of using it like contrast medium, I guess. And that is, there we go. But see, this is the advantage. Seeing, I'm not blending that because it is semi-translucent. It looks like I just blended that there. I didn't have to. That is the sweet thing about doing that sort of method. But what I am going to do, I'm going to just say, again, thanks to everybody for watching, because it is now 5-something in the morning here, and I need to get me some sleep. But like I said, if you can drop me a like on this, and if you want to be around for other, here, let's switch the light on this. That gives you a little different impression of it there. But thanks again for everybody who watched this. And if you want to see more tutorials like this, just subscribe to the channel. And if you really want to go in depth, when you sign up for that Army Painter pledge level there, it's $15, and you get something like 85 or 87 tutorials right off the bat. Because there's 10 army painting series at 5 episodes apiece, and each episode is 2 some hours long. So you get money, you get value for your money, I think. So maybe you want to give that a shot, see what this crazy world of painting is like. That would make me happy, because I try to make people's painting lives a little bit easier. Try and present you with as many options as possible. So thanks everybody for watching, and I'll catch you during the week on the next live episode. Cheers.